Hello everybody, so it's about that time, right? Do Bronx versus Islam Part 2, happening a little under 2 weeks from now. And as a Charles fan, it's a nervous time to be a Charles fan, that's all I can say. And how can we? We saw how that first fight with Islam went. Charles didn't look anything like he fought when he fought Gaethje, when he fought Poirier. It seemed like Islam, for a lack of a better term, put a leash on the beast. He nullified all of his offenses, and on the ground, it kind of looked like he was dominating there, which we were expecting because Islam comes with the Khabib camp and they're very wrestling heavy. But still, the way he took out Do Bronx in the second round with that submission was just wild. And I think I speak for every single person in the MMA world that it broke all our hearts to see not only Charles lose the title, but to lose it in that fashion. It was just very sad. And then you could see all these rumors talking about that Charles is a quitter once again, and it was a very sad time last year. So I want to talk about why Charles has had such an impact on me specifically, and probably on every other person who watches MMA around the world. So let's take a trip back to my MMA journey and where it began. So before I get into where I started with MMA, I wanted to give a quick kind of disclaimer that I might appear as a noob or still new to it, but it's not like I started watching it like last week. To be specific, I started watching it UFC 261 back in 2021, April 24th, Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman 2. During this time, I was mainly a boxing guy because I just always grew up with boxing and I was watching it. But if any of you also like watching boxing, you'll know that often what happens is there's a big period between huge fights, maybe like once a year or two a year or something like that. So there's not really enough for us to consume during that time unless we watch like little cards here and there. But that brings me to how I started watching MMA. It was during one of those downtimes when I had nothing to watch, and I just seen so many ads about UFC 261. And then I was like, oh, I know that Kamaru Usman guy. I heard of him around. And Jorge Masvidal, oh yeah, he was on the cover of EA Sports 4. So I'm like, oh, interesting. Maybe I should tune into that. And luckily for me, when I went to my uncle's house, he had bought the pay-per-view, and we started watching it there. And then I remember instantly just being amazed by how everything was. Seeing these people do crazy kicks, crazy takedowns, put in these crazy submissions. This was a whole new world because I was a boxing purist. I was like, yeah, MMA seems cool, but boxing is elegant. Boxing is top notch. It's above that. But as soon as I did my toes into the water of MMA, I just got hooked instantly. And like, how couldn't I? This is amazing. You guys all know the sport's amazing. That's why we love it so much. And then I remember watching the whole thing. And then when it came down to the main event, I was like, oh snap, who's gonna win? I think I was leaning towards Kamaru Usman just because I didn't like Jorge Masvidal's attitude and stuff, like coming off as cocky and like just a douchebag kind of thing. He seemed like a cool guy and all, but I just didn't like how he carried himself, you know. And then luckily for me, I guess, I'm not saying I'm a Masvidal hater or nothing, but lucky for me, Kamaru Usman just sent him to the other world, and I was like, oh my god, because that knockout was incredible. That's probably gonna be like Kamaru Usman's best knockout of like all time. Just the way he hit his head, the swim and flying and everything. And like back to the boxing, like you don't see people getting knocked out like that in boxing. So yeah, that drew me in. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. And then like soon after the event, I remember seeing all these ads for the Michael Chandler versus Charles Olivera for the vacant title. And I was like, what? The title is vacant? And then that's when I found out that Khabib officially retired, which made the title vacant. And I was like, interesting. So I wanted to tune into that because it did seem interesting. But I didn't know anybody on the card because like at the time I'm like, who is Michael Chandler? Who is Charles Olivera? Interesting. So when it came time for UFC 262, I was not really excited because again I didn't know anybody, but I was like very interested just because of how the last UFC pay-per-view went. So I tuned in. I watched the whole card. I don't remember that much on the card. I don't think it was that crazy of a card. I'm pretty sure if this card came out like today, like how it was back in the day, we probably would like make fun of it as the worst pay-per-view. But I just remember the Benil Darius just like toying with Tony Ferguson, I guess. But I guess that's just how Tony Ferguson is, sadly. And then when it was time for the main event, I just remember watching Charles Oliveira walking to the stage. He was very charismatic, very happy. And then when he went to the fight, it was just a slugfest at first. They were just throwing hands. He got his back a little bit. Michael Chandler slammed, and I was like, what the hell, man? This doing some WWE moves or something like that. I was just like, wow. And I was like, damn. And then, because I remember it was like the closing of the first round. Michael Chandler had him hurt, and it looked like he was going to finish. I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Because I don't know. I was kind of leaning towards Charles Oliveira. I don't know why, but in that fight, I was going for him. And then when I seen him drop that, I was like, oh snap, oh snap. And then the round ended, and then I was like, I wonder how this next round's gonna go. So the round started. Oliveira immediately marched towards him and started trading shots. And in the pocket, he caught him with one of the cleanest left hooks I've ever seen, which dropped Chandler. He kind of did like a little backflip rolling back, and then Oliveira just went on the hunt, went right behind him trying to get the finish, and hit him with another left hook against the cage, which dropped him, and then he just started hammering away. And then that's it. Charles Oliveira is the new lightweight champion of the world. And then yeah, like as soon as he won the title, when he just went like hopping around the cage, like you could just see the joy on his like face and how much this meant to him. And like that just, I think like that was a good feeling moment for everyone in the MMA world, because this guy's probably like someone who probably like doesn't have that much star power, but just worked towards it and had like an impressive run at the time, and he finally made it, like the underdog story. And then, yeah, when he got that thing, when he got the UFC belt wrapped around him, it was a good moment. And then from that moment on, I was like, hell yeah, bro. Like, that made me feel really happy. And since that moment, I've been a Charles Oliveira fanboy. Another thing I wanted to add is that around this time, there was the Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier trilogy, which I'm pretty sure we were all saying that the winner of that fight would have gotten the next title shot, which of course would have been against the newly crowned king, Charles Oliveira. So we were all tuning into that. I believe it was like a month after Charles fought or two or something like that. And yeah, unfortunately, Conor broke his leg. One thing you might hate me on this channel is that I'm a big Conor fan. Like, I just like think he's cool, and like if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't even know what MMA is. But yeah, I was like kind of sad that he broke his leg. And then Dustin, he was just kind of like parading by him. Like, me personally, I don't think that fight should have been counted as like a TKO. I think it should have been a no contest because he did kind of just break his leg. But whatever. The fight was in Dustin's favor, and he was gonna fight Charles for the belt next. We would see this fight at the end of the year, December time, UFC 269, and it was a pretty historic night, I'd say. On the undercard, we had Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena, where Juliana Pena submitted, I guess, Amanda Nunes. I don't know. I guess in retrospect, we all know that was, I don't know. I feel like you can't really say it's a fluke because she did like tap her, but like I think we all know that Amanda like wasn't really there at the time. I'm pretty sure she had like retirement on her mind and everything like that, and she would come back in the trilogy. I think it was the rematch. Yeah, they didn't have a trilogy. Sorry. Then the rematch, she just destroyed Juliana Pena. But yeah, it was a kind of a fluke. But it was the biggest upset in women MMA history. But then when we go to the main event, we had Charles Oliveira versus Dustin Poirier. I remember the narrative going into this fight. Everyone was like, Dustin is gonna ruin this kid. He has all the quit in him. And then you would see all those montages of everyone talking about, yeah, I got Dustin. I think Charles Oliveira still got that quit in him. Yeah, Dustin. Yeah, Dustin. But night of the fight, the first two rounds I'd say were like very like scary as a Charles Oliveira fan, because like he was getting dropped. But if you're a Charles Oliveira fan, you know that's just part of the thing. You know he's gonna get dropped, but you know he turns Super Saiyan after he gets dropped, and he comes back and wins the fight, which he did. I believe after the second round, he started digging to his body, and pretty sure then the second round he ended up on top of Dustin, just hitting him from the top, which I think won him the round. And the third round, we all see what happened. He took his back and submitted him, and just like that, he got his first defense. And this made me really, really happy because, I mean, as I mentioned before, I didn't like how Dustin beat Conor, so like, you already know I had to go for Charles anyway. So when he did win, I was very ecstatic. I'm like, yeah, that's my boy. Very happy, very happy. And then we also had the next challenger for Charles lined up. The dangerous, always fun, Justin Gaethje. Leading up to the fight and like during the Dustin Poirier fight, Justin Gaethje was talking so much trash about Charles Oliveira, saying that he was a quitter, he was gonna break him in the octagon and everything like that. And so as soon as he won the fight, he knew he was next, and the trash talk continued all the way up to the build-up of their fight. And their fight happened next year in spring, UFC 274. And the weirdest thing ever happened, and like I remember I was in school, and then I just seen the news that Charles Olivera was stripped of the title due to missing half a pound. I was like very upset, and I was like, there's no way, man. And like I don't know what was going on, because there was people all over the card saying that something was wrong with the weight. There was a lot of weight misses, a lot of like weird calibrations, and unfortunately Charles was, I guess, technically half a pound over, so they stripped him of the title. Huge disservice. Like I think that's one of the most bogus things that UFC has ever done, but whatever, it's in the past. I was kind of scared that this would affect Charles in a way, like mentally. But when I seen him walk out to the weigh-in, like the media weigh-in where everyone's there, he seemed like he was game. He was happy. Like he seemed like he was ready to prove that he still is the champion. And when it was fight time, oh my God, he was ready. The first round between Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira was one of the best title fight one-rounders I've ever seen. It was just action all around. I think Justin dropped him 2 times. He didn't go in his guard because he knew what would happen. And then Charles Oliveira got back up. They were trading. And then Charles Oliveira out of nowhere just hit him with one of the meanest right hands, which sat Justin Gaethje down. Like I don't think I've ever seen Justin Gaethje just get like went flying like that. Like I've seen him get knocked down and like get wobbled, like that's Justin Gaethje, but he went like almost flying from that right hand. And Charles, like a hawk, just hopped on him, started looking for his submissions, where eventually after rolling a little bit, he locked in a rear naked choke, and just like that, he beat Justin Gaethje. And I'm so mad that this did not count as a title defense, but or he didn't even get a title. Like he won and walked away as the #1 contender. Such bullshit. I'm pretty sure this was just to get Islam to fight for the vacant title, which we're gonna talk about next, unfortunately. So yeah, after the fight with Justin, I think everyone and the UFC already knew what they were gonna do next. Islam versus Charles for the vacant belt, which shouldn't really be vacant, but I'll stop talking about it. So yeah, we went into that fight Abu Dhabi, which is kind of unfair. Charles Oliveira's been everywhere except for his home country, but you know, he's a good man. He wants to take all the challenges. So he went over to Abu Dhabi for this fight. And when he got there, I don't even want to say it, man. It was my saddest day as MMA enjoyer. But yeah, Islam won. Unfortunate just seeing Charles like lose like that, and he looked very sad afterwards. And now Islam was the lightweight champ, and we were just sad and hoping for a rematch that didn't come, at least yet. Instead of the immediate rematch that Charles probably, I don't know if he should have got it, but it would have been kind of nice to see. Instead, what we got is a pretty cool super fight between Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev, which was way better than I thought it was gonna be, because I think all of us going into the fight, we were like, you just seen what he just did to Charles. Like no way that Volkanovski and his little self will stand even a chance against Islam. But to all of our surprises, we forgot how pound for pound good Volkanovski is, and he went in there and just gave it all to Islam. Like a lot of us, including me, think that Volk won that match, and unfortunately they gave it to Islam. But we saw him more battered and bruised than anything else in the UFC. And I think, if anything, that just showed that Islam isn't as invincible as we all thought he was. He can get hurt, he can get dropped, he can get countered. And Charles Oliveira, who I believe was in attendance that night, I'm sure he saw that, and now he knew, like, had somewhere to look at. I mean, will Islam fix the errors in his game that night? Well, if he's great as they say, hopefully. But if he doesn't, Charles has a lot to work with, and I think that gives him like something to work towards in this rematch coming up. But since the loss to Islam, we haven't really heard any news about Charles Oliveira fighting. He was kind of taking a little break, I suppose. But then we got announced that he was gonna face Beneil Dariush on the Canadian card with Amanda Nunes and Adil Aldana. And yeah, that was pretty exciting, because like Charles was back and he was gonna face the ultra hyped Beneil Dariush, who many people think should have a title shot. He was like on a big fight win streak, but the UFC probably didn't like him, so they're like, all right, Charles, take this man out. And well, you know Charles, man, He went in there and obliterated him. His comeback fight was better than anyone could expect it to be. He went in there and he didn't get wobbled a single time. That's a lot of people are calling him the new mythical fighter, Unwobbled Charles. He went in there, he had his hands up raised, he picked his shots, he landed the head kick, and he finished Beneil Dariush in the first round. And I like to say that this is the first time I bet on a UFC fight. I bet on Charles winning, because I don't know why they do my boy Charles so bad. They always have him as the underdog in the fight. But I was like, shoot, easy money. I know he's my favorite fighter. I'm going to put money on him. So I did, and I won money. So yeah, that was a pretty good fight. I was so hyped when he won. And all of us screamed in the air, Charles is back, because it was a great fight. And now we're looking forward to that Islam versus Charles fight, because he looked better, and we knew the second fight would be way better. And now we are just waiting. The countdown has begun. About 2 more weeks until we get to see this legendary rematch. Will it be still or and new? On top of this amazing card that's just absolutely stacked, we have Hamza Chimaev versus Paulo Costa, which I don't even know how to have it, because Paulo's just a beast, and then Hamza is also a beast. I believe it can go either way. We've seen Hamza go toe to toe with Gilbert Burns, but also Gilbert Burns doesn't weigh as much as Paulo Costa. How does Hamza Chimaev fare against someone who's around his size, if not bigger? Then we also have Johnny Walker versus Ankalaev, which is probably an underrated fight, but I think it should still be fun. I hope Johnny Walker wins, just because I think he looks absolutely hilarious. I've seen many memes comparing him to a caveman. But yeah, that card is absolutely stacked, and I can't wait. And the main event has me extremely nervous. But around this channel, we all root for Charles Olivera, and hopefully he has his hand raised. We know it won't be easy, but it will be well deserved if he gets it done. And all I gotta say is, good luck, Charles.